Hi everyone and welcome to Just Love. My name is Paula and I'm here with Judy. Hi Judy.
Hi Paula, hi everyone.
So Judy often talks about the human ladder with its 10 levels of consciousness. Earth is at level 1. But Judy, how important is consciousness in the universal sense, and is consciousness connected with self-realization?
Thanks Paula, this is a great question. In my book entitled Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth Lessons in History, I quoted at length from author Eben Alexander's book, Proof of Heaven, a neurosurgeon's journey into the afterlife. Eben Alexander, M.D., is a highly qualified neurosurgeon, in other words, a brain specialist, who remained in an extremely deep coma after contracting bacterial meningitis. To all intents and purposes, he was dead, as so much of his brain was destroyed from the illness. He defied all odds and came out of it after 7 days, miraculously cured, and living to tell of the clear memories he'd retained while in this state. What impressed him the most, especially being a neurosurgeon who had operated on many brains, was just as we have talked about in our Just Love episodes, that consciousness is not confined to the physical brain. It is way more expansive, and in fact, as the Zeta hybrid guy Bashar, channeled by Darryl Ankar, says, the human brain actually blocks the greater part of our consciousness. In other words, it only allows around 10% of our potential consciousness through.
Oh, okay. So did Eben Alexander talk about this in his book?
Yes, he did. To quote his description on page 117 of coming back into his body when he was waking from the week of coma. My mind, my real self, was squeezing its way back into the all too tight and limiting suit of physical existence, with its spatio-temporal bounds, its linear thought and its limitation to verbal communication. Things that up until a week ago I'd thought were the only mode of existence around, but which now showed themselves as extraordinarily cumbersome limitations. In other words, as Bashar says, our physical brain actually blocks the majority of our potential conscious awareness.
Okay. So, in other words, being brainy and intellectual is not really to do with the depth of consciousness.
Exactly. And in fact, high intellect can cause a block. Many very intelligent people are quite egotistical about their braininess. As Eben says in his book, he'd even been a bit that way himself, as are many other doctors and scientists. The comment he makes on this point of brain intellect versus consciousness, too much intellect can be a block to deeper consciousness. To quote from page 72, we can only see what our brain's filter allows through. The brain, in particular its left side linguistic logical part, that which generates our sense of rationality and the feeling of being a sharply defined ego or self, is the barrier to our higher knowledge and experience. And then he goes on to say, what I discovered out beyond is the indescribable immensity and complexity of the universe, and that consciousness is the basis of all that exists.
So he had universal awareness while he was out of body, when he was like in that coma.
Yes, definitely. On page 47, he tries to describe his perception of God and decided that the best word to use for God is Om. Again to quote, this being was so close that there seemed to be no distance at all between God and myself. Yet at the same time I could sense the infinite vastness of the Creator, could see how completely minuscule I was by comparison. I will use the name Om as the pronoun for God. It was the sound I remembered hearing associated with that omniscient, omnipotent and unconditionally loving God. But any descriptive word would fall short.
Just O-M, Om.
Om.
And
yeah.
I think that's the name for God in Sanskrit, the ancient language of India.
Yes, I think it is. I've certainly heard it before. And that makes sense because their understanding of spirituality is way ahead of Western religions, which have been altered and messed with so badly. Eben also talks about this, how we've brought the concept of God down to our limited level. Again, to quote from page 156, the universe has no beginning or end, and God is entirely present within every particle of it. Much, in fact, most of what people have had to say about God and the higher spiritual worlds has involved bringing them down to our level, rather than elevating our perception up to theirs. We taint with our insufficient descriptions their truly awesome nature.
This is something we spoke about in a recent episode, how it's what fundamentalist religions do, and it is why they appeal to those who cannot comprehend anything beyond the 3D. They reduce God down to this limited human level. This is fine if they find comfort in it, but the problem is it's used as a way of controlling others through fear. So I think it's interesting how they, so he says, they bring it down to our level instead of us elevating our perception up to theirs.
Yes. Because we have to expand our consciousness before we can be elevated.
So we're in the box. We stay in that little box.
Yeah.
And in a way that...
limited, as that's level 1 of the human ladder.
And keeps it... Yeah, we're level 1, but then those religions keep us in that little box because they don't want us to expand.
They don't allow us to expand. Yeah. And they use fear to do it when you think about it.
That's right.
Yeah, they portray God as a 3D being in a physical human body, and with the very 3D limits and vices of judgment, ego, jealousy, and the demand of worship. I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Keep holy the Sabbath day, thou shalt not use my name in vain. And if you dare to do any of these things, you'll roast in hell for eternity. And this threat of punishment can also include eating meat on Fridays, eating pork, not attending church every Sunday. What real God would care less about such things? I know.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because as children, that's some of the things that we were like, we were confronted with all of this. You must go to church, you can't... And like we've spoken about how we had to have a hat on our head. We couldn't enter the church without having something covering our head. And we put hankies and stuff on our head when we were at school.
As I mentioned to you, I was attending a convent school when the Vatican II Council happened. And 1 week we weren't allowed to eat meat on Fridays, and the next week we were.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? But and we just accepted it.
Yes,
you know, just
exactly.
This week we can't. Yeah, we didn't question. And that's why now, as we're in the shift in consciousness, like we're questioning everything, and we're wondering, like, how did we not question that then? But I mean, that's just the way it is. We've just evolved. Anyway. So, Earth humans, like we've said, they thrive on fear and drama, so they get pulled in by all of this, and it adds some spice to their lives. But it's also sad that they have this need to portray the God essence in such a negative and limited way.
Yes. I'm in the process of reading another brilliant book on the subject of near-death experiences. It's written by a lady by the name of Anita Moorjani and entitled Dying to be Me, My Journey from Cancer to Near-Death to True Healing. I'll include the details of where to get both these books listed below along with our website. Anita was very close to dying, with cancer right through her whole body, shutting all her organs down, causing her to pass over to the other side. Here's an excerpt from her book on page 139, where she talks about what she learned while out of body. In my N.D.E state, I realised that the entire universe is composed of unconditional love, and I'm an expression of this. Every atom, molecule, quark and tetraquark is made of love. I can be nothing else, because this is my essence and the nature of the entire universe. Even things that seem negative are all part of the infinite unconditional spectrum of love. In fact, universal life force energy is love, and I'm composed of universal energy. Realising this made me understand that I didn't have to try to become somebody else in order to be worthy. I already am all that I could attempt to be.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. It's a powerful statement. And I like her experience, the way she writes about her experience better than Eben.
Right.
Because he was more scientific, I guess,
Yes,
because of his
yes.
background.
Yeah.
But she's just like this lovely lady living, her life and got cancer and
Yeah.
cleared and then healed herself.
Absolutely.
So it's lovely.
Yeah.
If people want to read more about all of this, Judy's books can be accessed from Amazon through her website, and they are
Human by Day, Zeta by Night, followed by the Zeta Message, then Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, Lessons in History, and my two most recent books, both Kindle editions and also both available in German, An Interview with an Alien, Comments by an Undercover ET, and Cosmic Spirituality, Blending Religion and Science in Oneness from an Off-Planet Perspective.
Thanks, Jude, and thanks everyone for listening. Please share, like and subscribe. Sending you all much love and
Bye for now.